Expert authority world, are you in for the treat? I have none other than the author of EntreThrive, Aaron Marcum, on today's episode. Entrepreneurship, if ever there's a day, is not always an easy thing. But when you have a passion, when you have a purpose, there are things that I can't even articulate that I hope Aaron can, because he's smarter than me. But um, I can hear him. Okay, keep going. So I had a great talk with him just before I got started, and I can tell you, and he doesn't even know this yet, but there are people I have on the show, you've seen him over the years, and I can already tell he is salt of the earth, down to earth, you know, loving, caring husband, father, and I can't wait to introduce him. Well, I already am introducing him, but even things he was asking me prior, you're in for a treat because his whole business is helping you live stress-free and have a more prosperous, enjoyable entrepreneurial journey. And I can't wait to dive in. We're going to bring him up right after I thank the sponsor. Every business needs a book, including yours. Visit freebusinessbookpublishingcourse.com today to learn the 7 steps to publish and promote your nonfiction lead and profit-generating business book in 8 weeks. Once again, that's freebusinessbookpublishingcourse.com. Here he is, ladies and gentlemen, Aaron Marcum. Aaron, how are you feeling today?
I'm feeling great. I'm excited to be here, Mario. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to have. We're gonna have fun today.
I already am, and I have to sincerely thank you. I have a lot of great people who are very successful. They know what the heck they're talking about. And, you know, I was looking at your sheet and everything, like multiple multi-million dollar businesses started this, did that, 2 decades. I'm like, this guy's a rock star.
Well, I
But just
appreciate
what
it.
some of the things you asked me prior, I really appreciate. And I already know you're one of the 100 that you're a good one. So
Oh,
let's dive
thank
in,
you.
and I really hope your book reaches millions of people. I, I, there's so much I want to say. Welcome. What made you
Well,
get into this field?
honor to be here and getting into the field. Being an entrepreneur of over 2 decades, building businesses, but seeing a lot of that was in the healthcare, in-home care space. Yeah, and there are a lot of in that space as well as any industry, frankly, where there's burned out entrepreneurs. Burnout is probably overused, is that they might be uh,
Overstressed?
flourishing financially. What's that?
Overstressed?
Overstressed, unhealthy. If you look at a picture of me in 2015, I was I just was not happy as much, and so I had this period of time. My first business, 2002. I really overall, I'm a very optimistic individual, but I had a period of about 3 years, 2012 to about 2015, where I was so obsessively passionate about what I was doing that I was leaving everything else kind of went awry in my life
Mm.
and my relationships. Uh, just my business was not where I wanted it to be. And so, what really got me into what I'm doing now, which is really helping other entrepreneurs, I went back in the last even few years and got a master's degree in positive psychology from UPenn, studied directly
Congratulations.
under Dr. What's that?
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Transformational for me. Dr. Martin Seligman, who's the father of positive psychology, was my professor. So I feel really blessed to have him as somewhat of a mentor, as he is to so many others, right? So, but then my fascination and the reason I did the program was I wanted to find out, why do some entrepreneurs thrive and why do some not, right? And what are the practices, the methods? And I already had leaned into this several years before I went through the program in the healthcare space, in helping entrepreneurs find their why and their purpose. That was something I was very well known for in that space. But now just taking it to a whole other level, that's why I wrote this book and why I'm really focused on helping these entrepreneurs live a better life. I do a lot with the in-home care space now, and I'm very passionate about helping them level up their well-being. We call it the good life, Aristotle term, but really live and create. Really, first create the good life, and then live it. So,
Why do you feel so few people are thriving, living that
yeah,
good life? I know everyone starts a business, you want to have that freedom and go for it and everything, but why do most get sucked into this trap of like they just created a job where they're working 3 4 times as much and they're not
yeah,
thriving, they don't have that freedom, they just created
yeah,
a more intensive job? How do we
yeah.
flip that?
I'm gonna bring up something you mentioned before we went live, and your mission, right? And really came from COVID. And COVID for all of us as entrepreneurs kind of compounded some of these things even more so. The isolation, as entrepreneurs, we're already isolated. We're already alone in our leadership sometimes. And I think that's just been compounded since. And so, entrepreneurs in particular, and why so many are struggling is if you think about if an entrepreneur's not living their best life, think of the ripple effect on others, the people they employ, the team members, the community. Entrepreneurs, I say this a lot, and I don't think it's overused. They really make the world go round. And the impact that they have, the influence they have on others cannot be understated. 66% of our GDP is made up of small businesses. And so the impact we have is significant, especially in relationships, all of those things. So if we're not thriving, the ripple effect outwardly as entrepreneurs is exponential. Our families, relationships, all those things suffer. So
It's
it's yeah,
interesting. I've seen it, and it's an interesting stat. You're saying 66% are small businesses. What's the other percentage that still are businesses that aren't considered small anymore? Because I know everyone says this term small business, and some people think that's just a mom and pop shop on the
yeah.
corner selling thread or tools or something. But small business can be, by some standards,
$25
big.
million business can be a small business
Yeah.
still, relatively speaking. As you look at if you took a median, right, and you spliced it up, $25 million business to me, and I work with many in that kind of range, is kind of my sweet spot when it comes to working with even in the in-home care space. 25 million, but I've worked with 100 million, $1 billion businesses. Now obviously billion is not a small business anymore, but it's
Is it 50 or 100 million? That's like the official cutoff statistically for the
I don't
charts
know
and
what the stats say. For me, it's always been around the 50 million mark, that where
that's what
it's
I
really
thought.
getting into that scaling. But here's the thing. And I think that we probably emphasize the small business a little bit too much, in the sense that $100 million business, I've got several friends who are worth more than $100 million, and they're still struggling with the same things and concepts that I am coaching on. That you can have all the money in the world, and your relationships could be on the fritz, right, and suffering. This doesn't, just because you have financial freedom, it does help. I would be a hypocrite if some of those things didn't help some. That I have enjoyed the material blessings of life for sure, but it doesn't mean I'm not prone to sabotaging my own relationships in the process. So
What would you say for someone that thinks they two-parter? One that knows something's up. They're fully consciously aware. What would you say to that person on how to mitigate it now and eliminate it? And what would you say to the person who might be not aware, but not just not aware, even denying it? No, no, I don't have any problems. Not me. Those people.
yeah. Oh, the first one, man, that's half the battle. And I talk about this in my book, is that the self-awareness and then self-acceptance, that creates so much clarity for an individual to say, you know what, I know this about myself. I know that I'm sabotaging some of my relationships, or that I don't have great habits right now. It may be even addictions. Entrepreneurs can be. Douglas Brackman wrote a great book, Drive, about the 10 percenter, right? And entrepreneurs have these issues, and it's and being self-aware, that creates the clarity, and then that allows the entrepreneur. I had this exercise called the guiding truths exercise, helping entrepreneurs establish what they want to be true about themselves. And so these guiding truths kind of they're like the roadmap to everything, their core values in their business. Everything they do, the decisions they make are guided by these truths, but you can't get to those guiding truths unless you're self-aware and
Mm,
accept who you are as well. That's really, really important. For the other one, the second person who is not self-aware and hasn't accepted that, man, that's like beating against the wall. Truly, I have been known to let go of clients that I'm coaching based upon that very fact they're unable to see what the issues are. And a lot of it, call it the lack of agency, or they're not taking extreme ownership in their lives. A lot of times they're blaming others for maybe some of the negative things in their life, whether it be personal or professional. And if you are so busy blaming others as an entrepreneur and not taking that extreme ownership, I love that book, by the way,
mm-hmm.
then you are missing opportunities, not just to live a better life, but financial opportunities are being left to the side, because you can't see past your nose. And so it's that is very, in fact, I address it right at the beginning of the book, is that this you have to have that awareness and self-acceptance in order to move forward. It's really almost impossible.
Yeah, and the other thing I'll add to that is you can't see past your own nose, like you said. So there's stuff you're just missing. But the other thing I've been hyper aware of lately is you have the opportunity, even if it gets smashed in your face, somehow it gets through and you can see it. You go for it, but then people realize you can't see past your nose, and they can't trust you. If
Yeah. Oh,
they're so congested
yeah.
with this, and this. It's like I want to give you the opportunity. I'm doing everything I can. Like we'll put all the force on earth into it, and it's just like you're not going to be able to handle this past 3 days, and we need six
Yeah.
months out of it.
Yeah. Yeah, they really are cutting themselves short, and again, they're not able to. There's complacency in that. And it erodes the relationships over time. Patrick Lencioni says the number
Great
one
author,
dysfunction
speaker
of a
too.
team. What's that?
I said great author and speaker.
Yes, I love Patrick Lencioni. And in the five dysfunctions of a team, the number one dysfunction is the absence of trust. And if you let your pride and your ego get in the way, and you can't see past your nose, and you're not willing to, that will whittle away that trust. And then everything else falls apart. You can't have commitment from the team. The results are impacted. There's no accountability. All of those things fall to the wayside, really.
Let's help both of them. Let's help the person listening going, all right, maybe they're self aware. Maybe they weren't, but now they're listening to us and they're going, okay, that does make sense. This makes sense. Huh? They're piecing it together, let's say. I want to touch on the people that already had an issue in a second, but the people who are at least aware enough, what would you say their first step should be? Should they have a powwow with the team? Should they talk to someone else? Should they just go to a cabin and reflect for a week and journal? What would you say? Okay, if
Yeah.
you even think there's a monicum of this is a possibility, in which there is in everyone,
Yeah. Yeah, we can all
what's the
change.
first
Let me
step?
share in a story here, an actual
Please.
story I had experience that I had. This was in 2016. We were going through a core value exercise. We were actually implementing EOS at the time, which I
Oh,
love
very
the,
nice.
the the model there, and with our EOS implementer. And we were going through, and we got our core values that we felt really strongly about. I'd helped create these core values for my own guiding truths, what was really important to me, because I had my guiding truths back then. And as you go through this process, your team rates you on your core values. And I actually had got 2 negative ratings on the core values.
Interesting.
In fact, I had the worst score from the leadership team. And because I was that entrepreneur who was not self-aware back then, I thought I knew everything, and that what came out from the feedback is that I was a little bit controlling. But we had an environment, and that's the, I guess the answer here is you've got to create an environment where that feedback can be given to you, because you don't know what you don't know sometimes as the entrepreneur. So if you're open to your team giving you feedback, and I think feedback on the core values of the company is really important. If it's a spouse, it's feedback on your guiding truths, to say, because one of my guiding truths is that my family receives of my time. I have 8 guiding truths, and that's one of them. My wife could give me feedback specifically to whether I'm giving them my time. So going to those people who would be best suited to give you that feedback, and then let it come. And I'll be honest with you, initially I bristled, but because of the environment that had been created, I sat back and I was like, you know what? They're right. I am this way. From that moment on, I honestly accelerated a change that I became a far different leader because of that feedback. It changed me because of the environment that was created. And also, you never want your team members to be afraid to tell you honest truth, as a leader. Yeah, and if they just are a yes man, yes woman all the time, then you're not growing as an entrepreneur. It's very hard to grow without that valuable feedback. So that was
How
very valuable to me,
how often
humbling but valuable.
how often should you be asking them for feedback?
I think every at least every few months. I know
Okay.
a mentor of mine. He does it weekly. He's asking his team, what can I do better? What I noticed this happen. Maybe I could have responded differently in the
Okay.
situation. What are your thoughts? He's not, and it's not placating. He's very honest about wanting to know, okay, I noticed I did this. What do you think? And they like, yeah, you did this. And just
Do you
very,
think it
very
could
honest. I
depend
was
on the
with
size
a
of the team?
mentor last week who was like this. What's that?
Do you think it could depend on the size of the team?
Very much so. A larger team, a little bit more
More often?
difficult. Yeah.
Oh, I was gonna say more often because I was just thinking like if you have 5 people versus 50, I can't imagine 50 people on a weekly basis ask
No.
your whole business would be 360
Yeah. When I
internet.
say weekly, he's not necessarily going to in the entire company, but when it
Okay,
comes to his leadership team,
I
he's
see.
consistently getting their feedback from 5 or 6 people, and sincerely wants to hear it.
And the number of deals too. If you're just constantly cranking stuff out and there's so many moving parts versus
Yeah.
you have 3 main accounts or 10, I don't know, just a number where it's like this is pretty easy and effortless. We exchange 4 emails.
What do you think?
Yeah, that's a lot different
You
than
know,
foot traffic and
yeah.
like a service-based business with an actual building.
Yeah, think about it this way too. What if you're on a call with a sales rep? You're the CEO and you're just they asked you to come in on this call to close a big deal. What would happen after the call, rather than throwing feedback at them and how they could improve, because that's the tendency of most of us and CEOs. What if we reflected back and say, hey, I'd really like your feedback on this. How did I handle this situation? Would you recommend a different response? Think about what that does for that person. There's their CEO asking for their own advice.
Yeah.
And it also opens them up to more feedback, as well. And so and then the trust
You build that
grows within that
dynamic of
relationship.
knowing there's always this open, and even if you
Yeah.
don't ask, hey, I noticed you were doing this thing.
Yeah. 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 And then it opens up for future honest conversations. If you do want them to improve in an area, you've already sought their feedback in your own improvement.
That's really good. I think a lot of people, being me, in the past, and then I talk to other people. They're like, yeah, same issues. It was I switched stuff around because I was like, how do I empower the team more? One of the masterminds I'm part of, like we were addressing it over a 3-day event and different things. It was already on my mind, but like you were saying, it's astonishing to go. It doesn't matter if someone's doing 1 million a year, 10 million a year, 100 million a year. It's like I'm having problems here, okay, but you're killing it over here, and that's all that people see. And then other people, it's like I'm having problems over here. No one, everyone knows it, but you're really killing it behind the scenes. So
Yeah.
there's this, like, it doesn't matter what you're doing, or maybe you're the random unicorn that has great front of the house, back of the house, unlimited leads, unlimited money, but like you said, you're alone.
Yeah.
You can't really enjoy it. That's not really freedom. Everyone else is benefiting.
Yeah, that's not freedom at all. Dan Sullivan, my coach, I don't know if you're familiar with some of
Yep.
Dan's work. 10x is easier than 2x, but he has been talking about this backstage, front stage for several years, and it's always impacted me on how does your front stage look to your backstage, and by getting them in sync, you can enjoy a lot better life as an entrepreneur. And in my book, I actually, when I talk about these deeper relationships, especially, even in your professional environment, that congruence or congruency between your personal and your public persona is pretty important as an entrepreneur. It's important to your well-being. If you're different in public as you are in private, or vice versa, and that your social media posts look amazing, but in private you're not that person, then there's incongruence. And that incongruence impacts whether we're really happy with ourselves. And no amount of money is going to fix that incongruence. And when we are incongruent, our well-being suffers regardless of how well off we are from a material standpoint. So,
Yeah, he's phenomenal, and so is Ben Hardy. I had him on the show, and
oh, good.
just phenomenal. Can't speak highly enough. But would you say that
Yeah.
people know? I mean, when you said that in your social media looks one way, I was actually watching this comedy video of like just like the real behind the scenes of the social media, whatever. It was
Yeah.
hilarious, but the reality is, you think people can tell nowadays that like all you're posting is this or this, and they can tell if you're out for
Yeah.
you or them.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's hard as an entrepreneur. I mean, I'm living this right now with this book launch, is that I have my social media team posting things about my family. I have 6 kids, and we live on an amazing piece of property. We have the Snake River, and all that looks so beautiful. But what it's not showing is that when I'm frustrated with my teenage 14-year-old for sleeping in, or not getting his homework done, some of those little things, and some of the bigger things, the negative interactions that I might have on a weekly basis with my family members, or with other team members, that none of us are perfect. And I do appreciate some of those who are a little bit more raw in their posts. And I'm trying to get better and better at that myself, is that I'm like, I want people to understand that if they're going to learn from me, I want them to learn from my mistakes as an entrepreneur. And I talk about my mistakes in the book. I try to be as
So
vulnerable as
wisdom.
I can. Yes. The best guides in life are those who went through things that were pretty hard and difficult and made mistakes along the way, and can help you navigate
Mm-hmm.
things a little bit better than they did. That's me to a T. So,
It's
is
interesting
that
you
I've
say that. I was
navigated through
actually
some pretty
gonna
hard stuff as an entrepreneur. What's that?
I was actually gonna ask you. So we have a clip of this. You're more than welcome to use, of you talking about the behind the scenes. Have you considered putting it out there and just doing one a week? Even, I'm not saying to, because some people go, oh, I'm just being raw and vulnerable and authentic. It's like you're just
Yeah.
complaining and recording it. Like it's just constant. Okay.
Yeah, I'd love that. That's a great idea.
But
And
even once a
even behind the
week.
scenes, I should have done that more with the book, to be honest with you. I haven't big until recently. I haven't been big until recently in social media. That's just been I've been kind of thrown out
Well,
into the,
you're not missing
you know,
much, and my social media team
yeah.
would be like, thanks, we appreciate that. But I was talking with them the other day, and I was like, Prove me wrong.
Yeah.
Sorry, but
Yeah.
the reality is, even what we're talking about, it's why I love having first class entrepreneurs on the show like you, because it's like, hey, we can actually have a dialogue, a conversation. It's not, we both could go whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, is that really what you're
Yeah.
doing when it's like, hey, here's why I wrote about this in not even chapter 5, but you go on page 66. There's a, all joking aside, there's actually something in mine I do reveal in chapter 5, 6, or 7. Um, and it's my background, and people are like, how hard is it to do a book and everything? But it's like, what is something you did share that is raw, that not only is, hey, it would make a good piece, but when you have a book, you probably did share it. It legit hooks to it. It's not a complete, oh my gosh, I
Yeah.
just had a run day. But there's, and
Yeah.
I know for a fact people appreciate it. It's why I always
Yeah.
interject some humor. Like, it's
Yeah.
not all just, here's the stats, here's the data. Like, oh my gosh, how boring.
Yeah. And there's and I do write a little bit about this in the book, but um, I remember in 2009, it was 2009, 2010, right actually the beginning of 2010, I was asked to do by the Home Care Association of America to do this new fresh benchmarking study for the industry. No stats background, no, none of that, right? But I had industry background. I had my own home care agency. I'd started this new company in data analytics. So I was like, okay, I'm all in. It wore me out trying to learn all those things. And the deadline was crazy, to try to hit it. So I found this moment where I was sleeping under my desk. And I was the first time I'd ever like down those 5 hour energy drinks, just trying to stay awake. Just being vulnerable here. I was in tears. I was almost out of money. It was a time in my life. I had my guiding truths then as well. And it was my guiding truths that were on my wall. And I looked over and I just reminded me of why I was doing what I was doing and picked myself up. I made the deadlines. I mean, that study's now in its 13th or 14th annual edition. It's like the Bible for the in-home care industry. And but I was this close to giving up. Like I was like, I'm going to call the trade association and I'm just telling them I just can't do it. I'm done. And I look back on that and I say, okay, if I had given up, if I'd given into that temptation, which was so strong, I could hardly open my eyes. And I get emotional even sharing it sometimes, is that the impact that has made on an industry when it comes to quality of care and improving operations for that industry has been astronomical. It's been exponential, but it was this close to never happening. And so,
I know the
um,
feeling. I'm so glad you
yeah,
stuck with it. And you're
yeah,
just getting started. I was thinking about
yeah,
this
I
the other
am. I
day, like,
mean,
how many more years do we have left?
it's right. It's right. I just want to tell you, especially the younger entrepreneur, if you're starting a new venture, lean into it, man. Just like believe in it and move. I call the levels of grit is that go from curiosity clear to calling takes, sometimes you can do it really quickly and sometimes it takes practice and time, but man, don't give up, and lean into it. And there comes a time, Seth Godin makes a good argument that sometimes you have to quit, but you have to know when that is. And at that moment under the desk, I knew that wasn't the time. So yeah.
This is probably a tall order, but I'm feeling it, and I think we can articulate it. But for the person, and you're stirring up my times too. Um, how do we help someone and help them differentiate? Is this the time to, maybe this isn't what I'm supposed to be focusing on? Maybe it's time to quit. Maybe it's time to not focus on this right now, or maybe it is a, maybe this is a make or break moment. Like, maybe this is just a test to
Yeah.
go, there's one thing on my mind that I've used, but is there anything that comes to mind for you? Like, how did you know under the desk this isn't the time?
I looked at my guiding truths, and I knew that this was a service for me at the time, that I knew that our industry, as a former home care owner, lacked information and data. And if not me, who? And I think that's a good question when you've got something that, especially if no one's doing it or not in the way you're planning on doing it, then who's going to do it if you're not going to do it? Who's going to move it forward and move that ball forward? And so I think that's a really important differentiator of knowing when. And again, going back to those levels of grit, there's 5 levels. And the further you get, the more staying power you have. And so as entrepreneurs, we start with the first level, which is curiosity in our ventures. Then that curiosity goes into interest. We start digging into knowledge and wanting to know more into this idea. But the third level is where most get stuck and where we have to make a decision, and that's the practice phase. We feel a lot of times when we start something, we think that passion should just kind of fall into our laps. And we want to go from interest to passion and skip the third phase, which is practice.
Mm,
And that phase can sometimes take a while. And I was with that benchmarking study, I was in that practice phase. And if I would have quit then, I wouldn't have given it the time it needed or deserved to really see if it would make the impact I wanted it to make.
10,000
When
hours?
I released it, man, I went to that passion phase real quick, because then I started getting this feedback and realizing what we could do with it. And then the next versions were so much better as we got better and better at doing it. And I brought on team members to help me, just exponential growth from that standpoint. And then the last phase, so you got passion phase is number 4, and then the last is calling. And so when you're called to something, when you feel called, then quitting is almost not an option,
Right.
right? You're like, I am called to do this, and that's important. When you know you're called, quitting is very hard to do.
You articulated it. I knew you, I had a feeling you could. I was going to say burning desire. There's been times where it's like,
Yeah, same
God,
thing.
God didn't put this on my heart. I don't care if it's been 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years, or 20 years. There's no way. However, what the heck now? And then there's other times it's like, no, I was interested in that. Yeah, I probably could stop doing it. And I am, this whole thing is stirring up the last specific instances I could pinpoint to even this moment. That it was like, that
Yeah,
was exactly that, that was exactly that, and that was exactly that. As I'm sure you can too. Like you were saying, you were a totally different person. And I want to stress how cool it is for everyone that is either going through it, near it, or may go through it in the future. How cool would you say it is to be on the other side now that we are, didn't give up and go, you know what, I just said this 2 nights ago. The dreams you had 2 3 years ago, you're living now. What's your
yeah,
take on that? Is it
100%.
pretty cool or yeah?
Oh, it's amazing. I back in 2017, I had made the decision. I really wanted to do the master's program at UPenn and learn more about positive psychology so I could really lean into what I felt like I wanted my calling to be, and that's to help other entrepreneurs flourish and thrive. That was 2017. I didn't enroll in that program until 4 years later. And so, whatever that is, don't let go of it. I was a busy CEO at the time. It just wasn't going to work in my schedule. I still had to go through the application process, which was pretty intense,
Yeah.
and hundreds apply and don't get in. So I didn't even know if I was going to get in, but I just felt that that was where I needed to be, and I needed to help other entrepreneurs. And once you feel that, don't let go of it if it's something that just keeps burning. And now living it and looking in hindsight and what that's done for me, I'm so grateful for my 2017 self who made that commitment. So making commitments to yourself, even if it's several years later, you end up fulfilling that promise to yourself,
It sounds like you were
and
trying to
it's made
be
a world of difference.
it sounds like you were trying to be your future self now.
Yeah. Yeah. Van Hardy got that book. Great book.
Yeah, there's things I 2 months ago, 2 years ago, 20 years ago, it's like it's working.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
when I guest on interviews, which I do regularly also, and people go, "When do you start your business?" It's my favorite question because I'm just like, "Which time?" It's those defining
I love
moments where
that.
it's like, "How long you had the business?" Which one? Because even though it's
Yeah.
the same, it's like wanted to quit. Like when you renew it and you go, "No, I'm not." It's like you just entered a new business.
Yeah.
Your confidence, your
Yeah.
commitment, your resolve, like the cool thing is less and less phases you.
Yes. As you get more, and I equate it to I took an sorry, a travel to I went travel to Alaska a few months ago, and very unpredictable weather in Alaska. Did a fishing trip, 55 miles of floating. And it's like the entrepreneurial journey. Some days were just 60-mile-an-hour winds, rain, unpredictable. And some were just epic fishing where we still got rained on, but the fishing was amazing. Right. And so that's the entrepreneurial journey in a nutshell, is that we're constantly having, and as you get better, like by days 5 and 6, I was a pro. Like the rain was no big deal anymore. The uncertainties were no big deal. I was just
Yeah.
enjoying the journey and the fishing, and didn't really mind the mosquitoes that were flying all over me, So it is after you, as you get more and more tenured as an entrepreneur, that it does get easier. I will say that, or it should. If you find that's not true for yourself, I would question where you are at in the grit
Mm-hmm.
phases of your journey. So yeah,
It's like that Forrest Gump quote: "Life's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get." Entrepreneurship is
yeah,
definitely a
yeah,
spin a wheel and see what happens.
yeah. That's right. That's right. For
Speaking of
sure.
spinning wheels, I have the wheel of whatever for you. You gotta pick yellow or black, and it'll determine the question.
I will take yellow.
All right. Oh, you're gonna like that question. See them all on there.
Yeah, yeah, a little bit hard to see, but yeah.
I'm teasing. There are none. My original concept was
Oh,
like that game show, and there would actually be like categories like entrepreneurship, travel, boom, boom. And I just didn't have time before
so
when
there's
we
not any questions on
no.
that wheel.
So
You're gonna make this up, all right? Yeah, I love it. Uncertainties.
yeah, so I was like, well, I don't want to wait till next week. I had just painted the thing, and then the episode, I'm like, I'll just do it this week with none, do them next week. And then I was like, oh my gosh, this gives me carte blanche to just literally do whatever, say whatever, ask whatever. So you obviously have a servant's heart and want to. You're making a change in the world. I'm gonna ask you. See that's proof. Where is somewhere you've like what is something you've never been able to do that you've really wanted to that might seem like do you want to go to the moon, maybe search for Atlantis, see if dinosaurs exist in the Congo? Is there anything that's like you're doing so much for so many other people? I don't even want to say travel. Like what is something that's like okay, here's here's what I really find fascinating, even if it's like a hobby side thing completely unrelated. Do
Yeah.
you have anything like that?
Yeah. I think for me, so I'm a cyclist. I love to bike.
Okay.
And I would love, and I actually have an opportunity. I don't know if it'll happen this year. I have a good friend that has done this, but to actually go and ride, have the health to be able to do this, and the physical stamina to actually ride the Tour de France, not do the Tour de France, but ride on the same hills in France and so
Okay.
forth.
That would
That
be cool.
and do a full tour just leave for a month, 2 months if I need to, not worry about the business back home. And I build businesses this way. This is something I always try to get my companies to that point where I can take a 7, 8 week sabbatical. I did a 7 week sabbatical with my last company, but that will be my next sabbatical. Is that I really want to just go. My wife bikes as well. It'd be awesome to go together and do that
Fantastic.
together.
That's
So
awesome. Thank you
yeah,
for sharing that. I wasn't sure.
yeah,
I thought it was a shot, but
yeah. No desire to go to the moon for some reason, but
okay.
I have moonshots like Peter Diamandis, talks
Right.
about, but going to the moon, literally, I like to be grounded on Earth.
Those weren't hypothetical. Things I asked you originally weren't hypotheticals. I think the moon would be three for me, but the other ones have always been like,
Yeah.
yeah,
I guess it would be cool to see the Earth from the moon. That would be epic
yeah,
to actually look down on the Earth. Huh. Yeah.
not just a
I could
picture
see
of it.
that.
There you go. I
Yeah.
mean, it's more possible now in our generation than ever before,
Oh,
but
thanks to Mr. Elon, right? And others.
yeah. All right, we're going to thank the sponsor and come back for the imperfect action round. Every business needs a book, including yours. Visit freebusinessbookpublishingcourse.com today to learn the 7 steps to publish and promote your nonfiction lead and profit generating business book in 8 weeks. Once again, that's freebusinessbookpublishingcourse.com. All right, we are back with the imperfect action round. Aaron, are you ready to take imperfect action?
Yes.
I got 3 questions for you. Rapid fire answers. The first one is, what is the fastest path to the cash?
Fastest path to the cash is clarity on your guiding truths, which is takes you to financial freedom.
Very good. Number 2, what is the biggest problem you see your prospects making and the fastest way for them to fix it?
Not owning their crap. And the fastest way is to take agency and own their crap.
All right. Number 3, the best way to maximize customer lifetime value.
Best way to maximize that is consistently create the value, connection with your clients.
As a publisher, I got to ask you, what are some other books, because I know you've given us so many good ones already, what are some other books you would recommend to Expert Authority World?
Yeah, I mentioned 10X is easier than 2X. I love all of Dan Sullivan and Ben Hardy's The Trilogy. These are things that Dan has been teaching his community, coaching for years, right? Gap in the Gain, Who Not How, 2 great books. I love Greg McKeown's book, Essentialism. It's one of my favorite all-time books about less is more, which is an excellent, excellent read. The Good Life is a good book as well. It really kind of ties into my own book, EntreThrive, which is based upon the longest Harvard study, 80 plus years on what really creates the good life. It's all about relationships, just a little hint when it comes to the good life. Those are some of the books. And the creative act is, I'm just about through it, and I really, really love that book. So
And
it's a
who's
good
that
book.
one by again? I think someone just recommended that to me a week ago.
Yeah.
Is that Rick
And
Rubin's?
I knew you were going to ask me. Rick Rubin.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Very cool.
it really resonates to me as an entrepreneur. And it's my second law, entre create, in my book, Entre Thrive. I even quoted him in the book, is that creativity is so critical to an entrepreneur's well-being and their happiness. If they're not creating and they're all constantly in their business, what fun is that for an entrepreneur? We're creators. We need to make sure we're spending and taking time to create some of the best things. Solving
Yeah.
problems is a creative act, that kind of thing. So yeah,
Great recommendations. Thank you so much for those.
you
Where
bet.
would you like people to learn more?
So you go to entrethrive.com. That's EntreThrive /expert authority. We actually have a URL for just your listeners. and they can download the EntreClarity guide, which helps them get to their guiding truths and create their next breakaway, which is a biking term, which is one of my favorite principles in the book. I actually am creating a whole program for in-home care entrepreneurs called the Breakaway Accelerator that I'm excited about. But it's really, anyway, it's a great concept, but they can download that tool for free, go there, and they can also pre-order the book there, and comes out February 21st. For those listening, it's exciting
might
time.
already be out by the time they hear it.
Yeah, could be.
Excellent.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much. I've thoroughly enjoyed this. Like I said, I knew I was going to even before we started, but you 100% exceeded what I even anticipated.
That's my goal, Mario. And wow, great conversation. You're an excellent host. Thank
Thank you.
you.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
All right, Expert Authority World, we have another great episode here today. I'll see you on the next one. Have a great day.